Hello, hello, my beloved waking gods and goddesses. Maria West here. Welcome to Love, Truth, and Beauty. Happy 2025 to one and all. And this is Love, Truth, and Beauty, episode 395. We are launching our fifth birthday and our sixth season with our 16th installment of my video series, Conversations with Women, with my special guest, who is an astrologer, a homeopath, my homeopath, a mom, Wonder Woman, an amazing author of this beautiful book. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful book with a foreword written by our own Thomas Sheridan. Welcome, Elona Woods. Hello, darling.
Lovely to be on here. Hello, my lovely.
Thank you for being here. I am just so excited to share you, your wisdom, everything that you bring to the table, which is quite impressive. And I know that with my viewers, we are very interested and excited to hear about um, the journeys, the challenges, the inspirations. And so let's start off with, how it all came together, what your inspirations were, your childhood, all of that.
Life was interesting growing up. I grew up in an environment that was difficult, I would say. It was very harsh in so many different ways. What was the root cause of that? Unhealed trauma in parents
Mhm.
and them to be parents in children when they hadn't really done the work on themselves. And I didn't realize that until a lot later on within my life. And then I left home at 15, went off into the big wide worlds. It was interesting again because I'd been so sheltered to a degree as a child that I didn't know that humans could behave in such a way. So I found solitude quite good. Then after that point, I had a child quite young. I was 21 when I had my first one. And I was nervous about having her because I didn't want her being raised in the same environment that I'd had. And I don't blame my parents. All I know is that they had their stuff to work through and I was meant to be part of that journey. And it was at that point that I thought, and I lost everything at a certain point along that journey. And I thought, I need more than just the material.
Mm.
This, whatever this is, these things, it's not enough for me. And then I started hitting on the spiritual side of it, which was always there. I just wasn't looking at it. So then it started with tarot, astrology, and then I went across to palmistry, psychometry. And then I learned stuff about herbs at that point, but didn't really do too much because I moved from one place to another because I had to for work, wanted to go out and like January sales, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna get all this new stuff.
Mhm.
I was so over that, so bored. And I lived in a little village and I thought, what can I get? And there was a shop called Metamorphosis. And it was in that shop I started seeing the light in the dark, the crystals, the herbs, all of these different things. And it was from that point everything started changing. And then moving forwards into the future, I then learned homeopathy. And then I found that with all the things that I am learning or have learned,
Mhm.
you can put them all together and it kind of builds a picture, but it also builds a healing system.
That's so incredibly poignant. And as I'm listening to you and watching you, all of like the light, the gold behind you reminds me really of your journey and the signposts which you write about in your book, which is such a I don't even know how to put it into words because the book is more a feeling. It's a feeling, it's a transmission, it is well, it's your journey encapsulated in this, as well as your wisdom, which I love how you just kind of summed it up. So now let's get into the bits, specifically your childhood. What was the sort of main themes that you were aware of and working with?
I'm I'm quite a happy person.
Mm-hmm.
general, I would say I'm an optimistic person. I have my moments when I'm not, and I will own it. Okay. So I'm not a overly optimistic person all the time. I feel my feelings. And
Mhm.
when I was growing up, I felt really restricted. I couldn't really do much, couldn't go out. There was lots of kind of infidelities, and I was growing up at a time where there was still a bit, it wasn't, I didn't grow up in a racist area, but you could still feel the kind of remnants that sat there. So it was kind of
Mhm.
blacks and and also as well, just the home environment. There was lots of kids. My dad wasn't really around, and my mum was doing everything. But then what the things that she couldn't do, I shouldered. So it was I did a lot. For somebody so young, I did,
Mhm.
and I just didn't feel free. And I felt really, really restricted. Um, I felt a bit unheard. I felt not appreciated. There were so many different things that came with that. And in the end, when I left because I wanted freedom, because I wanted to be my own person. And I thought that the world was going to be a very different place. And
Mhm.
the sad thing about it is, it wasn't.
It
And
wasn't.
that's when you
Yeah.
really start to realize that something's really not right with this place. And I think I was 18 when one of my friends put a video on about the music industry, and it spoke about how dark it was. And when I watched that video, I could not, I was in shock, couldn't sleep properly. And do you know why? Because something hit so deeply
Yes.
that I knew that what was being said was true. And that was the spark to the
Yeah.
occult and the
Yeah.
esoteric.
Yeah. How did you how did you deal with that? Because I know that some of the revelations, I know within we have a very similar story of me leaving home very, very early and then being out in the world and going, uh-oh, shit, what did I sign up for? Because there were some really, really dark aspects of it. So, what are some of the sort of tools or some of the divine interventions, perhaps, that you came upon?
I remember once there was a guy that used to follow me, used to work at a place called Biffa Waste Services, and I lived at the YMCA and I had to walk through an alleyway to get to and from my job. And I remember one day he used to always try and talk to me, but he was so much older and I was such a kid. You know, I just wanted to be a kid. I was about 16 and he followed me. And then one day when I was walking back through the alleyway, something didn't feel right. And this is where your gut instinct starts kicking in.
Mhm. Yes.
And there was his van with the back open, but he was nowhere to be seen. And the next thing you know, he tried to grab me, but I don't suffer fools gladly. And whatever he tried to do, he ended up worse off. And I ended up just dealing with him right there on the spot, managed to fight my way out of it. I ran down to the YMCA, but I heard a voice and something said, crouch now. So I
Wow.
got down and I looked because you had to walk through these like bush bits. And he was there asking somebody, where's that girl? And I never moved. And that's not the first time I've heard that voice when you know that something's not
Mhm.
right, but it's so loud.
Yes.
And I always listened to it.
Yeah.
And the times that I didn't, let me tell you something now. Oh, I got bitten.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing how it's instantaneous, the sort of backlash of not listening and also the results of listening.
Mhm.
What do you attribute that to? Do you think it's something outside of you or something within you or something that is innately both?
I think it's something innately both, but I think it's something from within that can connect to something outside of the construct of this reality. So
Mhm.
it's able to tap into something from almost like the other side, I would say.
Yes.
And from that point, I learned how to read situations, tarot. I would say that I'm intuitive. I can feel and sense things very well. But I feel that all of us have got that ability. It's just that most of us do. Some listen and some don't. But the more you listen to that part of yourself, the more you're able to tune into that. And you know when something needs your attention.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's like the gap where we reside in both worlds has the information from both worlds, and we need to be able to interpret, translate, know, and trust. Trust our knowing, which I think is, I think it's part of the challenge of walking the sort of middle road of both worlds, is to be able to trust what's here, what's there, and understand that they're happening both at the same time, and making the decision which is for you.
Yeah. It takes a while to understand that. It's a real thing. It's a lifelong journey. It's a lot. Like if you astrologically, I've got quite interesting astrological placements and aspects and all the rest of it. And on one side, there's the confidence, but on the other side, there isn't. And it's learning how to kind of marry the two of them. It's also learning how to follow that wisdom outside the construct of societal norms.
Mhm.
And a lot of people that don't listen may look at you as being weird or strange or many other things. It's not fitting into most constructs of societal norms. And then life for me is like the test that we never planned for. It's just happening. And it's learning to balance out the day to day whilst knowing that you live in a world within a world.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that bit's it can be hard, but the more you learn, the easier it gets. Is it always easy? No. But you F around and you find out. That's my way of doing it.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love that meme that's going around. F around and find out, because it is through these contrasting experiences that we realize, okay, that wasn't so much for me. It
No.
was for someone else. And I always say that we have so many doors of opportunity, but not all doors are meant for you. And
No.
to know which ones to, like, ooh, let's go by that. Um, so what was it like? I know one of the things I admire about you is that you are a mom.
Yeah.
And because I don't think people realize that when you have children, your life is not just your own, it is for your children as well, and you are wholly responsible for them. I'm not one of those adherents to, they're their own little beings, and we're just going to let them do what they're going to do, and I don't care, which is a lot of bad parenting that I've witnessed over the many decades I've been alive. So, what was because you mentioned when you were expecting your first child that there was a little bit of an awakening process of, okay, from your experience, you were steadfast that that was not going to be your child's experience.
Terrifying. I think being a parent anyway is terrifying. Um, no one gives you the small print.
Hmm.
Every children are different. You can have four children, all of them are very different, different personalities, need different versions of yourself. I was terrified of getting things wrong. Have I got everything right? Absolutely not, because I'm winging it really as a parent. Um, I tried my best really to be as open as I could be with them and as explanatory. If I did something wrong, I would own it and just say, do you know what? I really could have done that a bit better. But I nurtured their, abilities and those sorts of things, traveled with them a lot. So we visited so many ancient sites all over the world. And
Mm-hmm.
to them, they loved it and they didn't at the time. I got told by them that we had a family meeting in Italy. We'd just been to Mount Pompeii and I said to them, look, come on, let's go up the top. When we got down the bottom on the bus, they said to me that we're having an immediate family meeting. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And they said that moving forwards with your great ideas, that anything above sea level, we are not involved. Okay. We're not getting involved.
Oh, that is precious. Wow, they are very honest.
Yeah.
They're
But
very
they get
honest.
it now.
Yes. Yeah.
Now
Wow.
I get it because now what I'm noticing is that my daughter's more leaning now towards wisdom of those ancient sites. And she
Mhm.
was like,
Yeah.
when I went there, this is how I felt. But I never knew that I felt like that until now when I looked at the picture. And my middle one's really intuitive as well. And I think that with kids, they don't really need things. They need experiences. And
Experiences, indeed.
I need to have moments that are just poignant for them. And you don't know what they're going to be.
Hmm.
But I think that when you take them to old sites, old places, let them look at old art, something inside of them awakens. And that's the way that I try to
Yeah.
parent my children and work with them that way.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I know that experience of taking the kids to the Grand Canyon, and it's just a hole in the earth. And the eye rolls and me just kind of like, you know, just not going off, just understanding that is their experience. They're not having it, it's hot, etc. So, but that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And they do come around, which is just so fantastic. And especially when we are raising children in this world of things like this, where these become essentially the babysitters and the experience portal of just so many kids, so many
Mm,
adults. It's very challenging, and that's one of the things I appreciate about your book, because you make the connection between the real universe, the natural universe, versus AI, and the direction in which many folks are headed. Whereas people like you and me, we tend to, stand back and kind of observe this, taking notes. Because I know for me, I'm not down with the singularity. I don't care. It's not happening.
big problem. And it's a bigger
Yes.
one than people can even fathom.
Yeah.
And for me, at the moment, it's almost like we're being guided into it. A lot of the people that have little to no awareness,
Mhm.
a lot of people are waking up though, so I can't discredit them. And then you've got the ones that are on the forefront, like yourself, that have been doing this for a very long time, almost kind of waving the flag, saying, "Do you know what? There's more out here, and these are the bits that I know." And then you've got others that know the bits that they know. So that we've got the ones that have been there for a very long time, trying to help the rest of us, and for that, I'm eternally grateful.
Mm. I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for our community, because it does. We are interwoven
Mm,
within the fabric of one another. The true humanity, the true spirit of creatrix, whatever you want to call it. And then this whole automated thing where so many people are bamboozled by the illusion of convenience,
yeah.
the illusion of right now, and isn't this cool? And this sort of soulless, soul-sucking, I don't even know what it is, but it just is so off to me. And it always surprises me when I meet people that they're subscribing to it without question. Um, are you
Yeah.
finding with the people drawn to you that they are aware of the sort of illusory nature of AI and technology?
That's a mixed bag. I know lots of different people. I would say that 80% of the people that are drawn to me are very aware. They're self-aware and
Mhm.
they're at different stages of their awakening. They
Mhm.
maybe either work with me using homeopathy, astrology, or whatever, or they're part of the tribe. The ones that are normally within the AI like kind of world, they've got the sentience, but they want the money. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well
That's
put.
and even though they know they won't stop. And for me, morals over money every single time.
Mhm. It is incredibly disturbing to me. And to have lived in an area of America, I call it the San Francisco Bay Area, where all the technology, all the money, many of the billionaires, and many of the sort of wokeism was like really uh, not just coming to life, but literally taking over, and people really just getting on board with the no soul, no spirit. I don't believe in anything except cold hard cash, and the one with the most toys wins. And just that disturbing nature of that sort of fake, it's not even human anymore, in the middle of this beautiful, beautiful area of the world. I mean, it just physically incredibly beautiful. Nature abounds. And yet this like, whew, this hard split of all this fake me stuff. It was very, very difficult to navigate that. And it got taken over by New Age bullshit, which was a sort of fake, illusory invitation by pseudo spiritualists or whatever you want to call them to entice the ego looking for so much more, to grab onto easy money, to easy prey, and to exploit that. Did you experience that as well?
With the kind of new age, when I was really going through my awakening, I would say that I found that there was a lot of people within that industry that monetized emotions.
Indeed.
And I'm talking thousands of pounds for different things. And a lot of people can't afford it, but they want the healing. But within that, there's a lesson for them as well. Uh,
Hmm.
I've just found that the whole new age scene for me could be a rite of passage for people because there's certain things that I've done, certain clothes and stuff that I've worn that I don't resonate with now. But I feel that on a bigger scale, that was put in place. It may even go back to kind of Blavatsky times around that kind of period there, that
Yes.
epoch. Um, and it's not, there's no structure with it. I'm more about natural law and working in accordance with, nature and these kind of things, but that's all gone. So I feel that within that whole industry, it's something that has to be evolved. There's too many terms and conditions. People can't really be themselves. You're either in the club or you're not. It's
Yes.
just it's difficult.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I always say, and I maintain this. I remember the first time I said that every group ends up being some totalitarian shit show eventually, of yes people, sycophants,
Mhm.
flying monkeys in their agreement echo chambers, and it never fails. It just it just gets overrun. And I would have to say, and I'm wondering if you feel the same, that the core wounding of belonging gets activated. And if that isn't really dealt with, and dealt with lovingly and thoroughly, we will always sort of succumb to like the next group, the next sense of belonging. Oh, she's just like me, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
That's another thing, because there are different stages. So maybe in the beginning, when you're younger, you got the raving scene and you're out and you're partying. And then you want a bit more. So you might, do some shrooms or whatever. You're in that kind of area. You go on to magic mushrooms, maybe. Not shrooms, sorry, Aya. Then you've got the medicine circles, and then you've got maybe the yoga. You've got lots of different
Mhm.
levels, but every time you're trying to level up with different people to try and
Yes.
find people. But what I'm finding now is that if you're leveled and centered within yourself, you can almost be around anybody. And people do try and draw you out with different traumas that they may be holding on to, but you
Mhm.
don't need to join that party. You
Yes.
can just stay centralized and be yourself and be okay
Yes.
with it.
Yeah. I've pretty much done the same thing, just part of the Tantra circle, yes, all of the isms and all that, only to discover that if you immerse yourself too deeply, it does become a club. It becomes a cult in and of itself, and a blood-sucking cult in and
Mhm.
of itself, where the sort of vampiristic nature of the group becomes very, very apparent, and it's easy to get ousted, which is why I like to stay in the outskirts. And clearly, wholly belong to myself always. So I think that's like really, really great advice. But as you say, it takes a long while to figure it out. And I know that for myself, I have fucked up many times where I think I'm involving myself in a group with highly evolved beings who have the utmost integrity, only to receive screenshots about how my personal information is being outed in a class. It's like, wow. Yeah,
Yeah, that is
yeah,
crazy. I
yeah.
mean, I'm an outsider kind of person. Like I know people, but I'm very mindful of where I put my energy on that level because I
Mhm.
always find they always say never meet your heroes, right? Because then you realize that they're just human, just the same way that we are.
Mhm.
Try to do with that is just I meet everybody as I do. I love them as they are within that. And until something's done wrong, I don't, you know, immerse myself with anything outside of that, knowing
Mhm.
me. But
Yes,
I don't get too involved in too many different things like that. I'm more of a you may see me there. I'm not one that's definitely going to be here or there. I'm on the outside. I'm an
yes,
outsider.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way. And I think I call myself a survivor of the whole workshop junkie realm because I was so hungry for information, like the homeopathy circle, the herbal circles, the Chinese medicine, the yoga, all of that, only to discover, I don't really adhere to the 12 tenets of this or that or
No,
another. And to realize that there's a reason I think many of these disciplines are kept apart from each other, because if we knew that they all needed to come together,
there you go.
everybody's is sort of scam would come apart, you know. And so I think it takes a lot of mistakes or half-hearted endeavors, where you're just kind of sort of peeking in to see what this is all about and discovering, I'm not going to worship that person. It's not going to happen, and take it from there. Um, I wanted to ask you specifically about your interest in homeopathy, because I find homeopathy to be probably, if not the best, the top three of natural healing. And what I mean by that, I mean natural healing that is available, that has always been available through all of the many things that Mother Nature has provided for us to be able to utilize to unfurl dysfunction, um, the sort of knots, if you will, and untie those.
Homeopathy, for me personally, is an absolute game changer. I've sat in the ayahuasca circles. I've done peyote. I love peyote, by the way, but haven't been for
Me
ages
as
because it's.
well.
I've done bufo. I've done loads of different plants. Um, I enjoyed it while I was there, but it's not somewhere that I would go now. And for me, it was never a system of healing that had longevity because it took a lot out of you. How did I come across homeopathy? I found it when my kids were really young. So in my early 20s. And just as I was about to get into it, I lost everything. And I almost look back now and I wonder if something was trying to stop me at that point from going there because I was already doing tarot and astrology, but it didn't let me go there. But also, as well, if I had have learned it at that point, I don't think I would have had enough life experience to really have been a good practitioner in what I was doing. So I found homeopathy. There's other videos that go into more detail. I've done one with you about how I've got onto that. But how did it change my world?
Mhm.
Homeopathy showed me the parts that I couldn't see. And I've had some really profound experiences, like childhood stuff. The reason why I forgive my parents so deeply is because you grow up to be some of the traits of theirs that you can't see. Okay. And then when you recognize that and you understand the feeling and the reasoning behind it, you kind of forgive them. You learn to really work with being within the most calmest version of yourself with that. Now, how my most profound one with that, I've had quite a few different experiences. I'll tell you a couple. I took a mix of ayahuasca and homeopathic potency, thymus gland, which opens up the heart field. So this is where your Akashic records are held, or like your.
Yes.
And I think it was carcinosin. I was trying to remember on the way here, and I took it once just as a once off, and it was in quite a high potency. Now that night I went to bed and I had a dream, and in this dream I was in a cave and there was a woman and she was stirring a pot and she was really old. And she said to me, "Oh, finally you've come and we've reconnected." And I woke up and it meant no sense, but my house was flooded. So I was like, what on earth is going on? So I
Wow.
called out a plumber and just said to him, I don't know what's happening. It was the upstairs bathroom leaking to the downstairs toilet.
Mhm.
And then when he came out, he said to me, "Oh, when they built your house, what had gone wrong is that the two pipes that they put together weren't connected properly, but I've reconnected them now." So whatever was happening on an inner world also happened on an outer
Oh
world.
my,
Yeah.
wow.
So I
That's
think I'm
powerful.
with a soul part. And there was another
Mhm.
I took, I'm going to go into plant medicines. I don't mean to, but I took ibogaine in homeopathic potency, which is a
Mhm.
natural medicine of Africa. Mhm. And when I was taking that, that one was supposed to reconnect you back to your ancestors. So I'd lived in this house for 3 years, and then all of a sudden, I was walking to Waitrose, going to get some shopping, and there was a man that lived across, and he just walked beside me, and I was like, "Hello," and he said, "Hi," and he was like, "What's your name?" And I told him, and he told me his name, and then we got on to what we did. So I told him what I was doing, and I said, "And what about you?" And he said, "Well, I actually work for ancestry.com." And I was like, okay. So I gave him he asked me for my details of my ancestry from the Caribbean and all the rest of it. And when I gave it to him, he went to the National Archive in Kew and he searched the name Skeet, which goes back to Sciota in Viking. And he said to me that your ancestors on your dad's side were Vikings. So I was able to reconnect with that part. And that was just from taking the remedy like once or twice. Uh,
Wow.
this is what I mean. And then I can't remember which one it was. And this one was all about understanding about past lives. And then my washing machine broke down. And it doesn't always work this way. These are just
Mhm.
the ones. So a guy came over and turned to see what was going. And then we were just talking about just weird stuff. And then I just said to him, I really need to get past life regression done. Like, where do you reckon I can get one? And he was like, my mum. His mum did it. So I went to go and so it brings to you
Yeah.
what it is that you need.
What you
It
need,
also
indeed.
shows you what it is that you can't see. And those are the most profound experiences. Some people have them, but it's a journey. Some people expect something the first time you do it. It
Yeah.
doesn't work that way.
No, no, no. It changes my experience is very similar. It
Mhm.
changes your magnetic field
It does.
where you become magnetic to everything that is ready to move you to your up leveling.
Yeah.
And it is like, it's powerful.
It's
Holy
intense.
moly.
You can get an absolute homeopathic battering. Yeah, I've had it a few times. I took carcinosin in a really high potency and I cried for 3 months. And
Hmm.
why did I cry? Not because of what I'd been through, not because of anybody else, but because of me. Because I was forced to look at my behavior traits that were not great. The way that I was with people, the way that I was with myself, with my time, the things that I could have done better. It was all the things I never wanted to look at. And
Yeah,
then once I actually made peace with those parts of myself, all this ancestral wisdom started coming forwards because those bad traits were covering up gifts that I couldn't see because I didn't have the awareness, number one, or the vibration to be able to access them.
indeed. Wow. So, how did you move from, like, did you work with a homeopath or did you, were you on this journey of your own true nature. Like I've done both. I worked with a homeopath and then, you know, discovered things for myself in my training. How did it go for you? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
to degree level. I went to uni, did the work with that. I
Hmm.
loved it because of myths and legends and they did all the esoteric sciences behind it and the astrological side. So it was amazing.
Cool.
Um, I worked with a homeopath. And when I went in, I remember being very like Thuya, and there's different aspects. Each remedy's got different sides. So for Thuya that I was everything had to be perfect on the outside, outfit on point, £200 shoes, going out and all the rest of it. Ask me any kind of questions and I'd make sure that the answer was perfect. Oh, that needed to get broken down. So I've gone in and he's helped me to open and awaken that. And I went with an older homeopath that had an esoteric background because that's who I.
Mhm.
And then I did bits of the journey on my own. And why I did that is because there was homeopaths like Burnett, and really great homeopaths, they would try remedies and they'd go into work and they'd have like sores on their face treating patients. And they'd be like, oh, what's going on? And he was like, oh, I was just testing that remedy out to see what it would do. And I kind of did that with it on an esoteric level.
Mhm.
And I remember once there was one remedy, it was a miasmatic one that I never took. And when I did take it, I took it once and it was in a really low potency, tuberculinum. And when I took it the first time, I felt like a bird that had lost its navigation. So I just thought, oh, okay, I didn't really like that. I'm not going to touch it again. But then I worked at Glastonbury. I work at Glastonbury Festival as a traveling homeopath. So I treat loads of people there. And then something said, when you get home, you've got to take that remedy, but you've got to go bring the big dogs in. So I took it. That remedy shows you where you are wasting your true creative expression. And after I took that, I finished my book.
Wow. Powerful. Yep, that's pretty amazing. That is
Yeah.
pretty amazing. I love the story of your homeopath doing these self-discovery um, uh, opt-ins with the remedies because that takes a lot. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and I know when I was playing around with my training, and like having these massive dreams of all the repertory things, and I was old school. I have the Lotus, materia medica
Well,
thing, and I love that. I still have them.
yeah.
I still refer to them. I also have an app which I never use. And I'm flipping around, and so having the dream of all that, and then just really honoring the work that our forefathers and foremothers did with homeopathy, trying these remedies out, and the observation and just the copious notes, just the whole processing. I had dreams about that, which always fascinates me. And so I really appreciate your approach. Um, what was your decision in terms of working with people? Um,
That's a big question.
yeah.
Got classical homeopaths, but I never started with homeopathy. I started off as a tarot reader and astrology. And then it's almost like whenever you tell anybody about the occult stuff, a lot of people back then, they're not really interested in it. And then I went on to Instagram and I tried to be the classical homeopath. But can I be honest with you? Something was missing.
Mhm.
Something felt that it was missing. And do you know what it was? It was medical astrology. I want to have a look at somebody's charts. I want to know what's going on in their natal charts, what's happening with the transits. I want to
Yes.
work, and I do work with homeopathy based on the planetary, elements. So, for instance, Saturn and the sexual organs and whatever's going on there. Aries is the head. Where are these placements? What's going on in the first house and the sixth? What's the aspects? And then I found that with homeopathy, I could work with the medical astrology, really look at a person based on what they were evolving from. Then you bring in the herbs that have planetary affinities,
Mhm.
and you can work with that as well with
Yeah.
it. And then you can go, what do you go, dependent on the moon cycle? Are you working with the root of the plant? Are you working with the leaves? You
Mhm.
have a whole system of healing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just by looking at somebody's astrological profile, based on what their placements are within their natal, you can say to them, when you were born, these are the plants that would work really well for you for if you have dippy bits. But then if they know their sun, their moon, and their rising sign, you've got homeopathic tissue salts that can work with them as well. Yeah. And it's just, for
Beautiful.
me, that was the game changer.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. And what's interesting is the Lotus book of has all of that. Like I just remember I got that at a thrift store. I found it at a Goodwill for $2.50 US, and I was floored. I'm like, oh my God. And I was amazed. It had listings for flower essences, the batch remedies. I mean, I was impressed, and all the astrological bits and pieces. So it really is the totality of our experience prior to our incarnation.
Yeah. I've just done a prenatal chart for somebody actually looking at what was going on for them before they were born.
Wow.
Look at that. Looked at the herbs around it, the sun, the moon, and the rising there in conjunction with what's happening now and how she's living her experience.
Hmm.
Absolutely amazing. But going back, I'm very jealous that you got that book for $2 because I've paid £150 for mine. And then do you know what he did? Robin Murphy, the one that wrote that book, he
Hmm.
made another one. And then I had to buy it again. I know. But
Yeah.
he died a couple of years ago. He died during COVID. And Robin, I'm sorry, like you are incredible. Thank you for all of the work that you've done. Thank you, Samuel Hahnemann. There's other books that I really like working with. I'll show you some here. I've got Chakra Prescribed.
Oh,
That brings in the planets, that brings in the different energy bodies. It brings,
beautiful.
you've also got homeopathy and the four elements. I don't think you can see that there. Yeah, so we're
Cool.
looking at the whole system of how you can work with it,
Hmm.
with the esoteric. If those out there that like psychological stuff, you've
Yeah.
got psychosubstance, which looks at different homeopathic ways of working
Yes.
again. And then finally, another one that I'll bring on is homeopathic color and sound remedies.
Awesome.
So
Ooh.
you
Yeah.
see, you can really, if you're coming in working as one thing, you can incorporate this modality of healing.
Hmm.
You don't need to leave whatever it is that you're currently doing to just become one thing. This is something for me that's mutable. You can
Yes.
integrate it into any kind of school of thought or system of healing.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I really have been enjoying just my deep dives into the sort of psychiatric and psychological aspects of the constitutional remedies and all of that. It's just like so fascinating.
Mhm.
It's just like, and I think to myself, how much time do I have on the planet? Because I would like to dive into all of that just simply for my own sheer scholastic, scholarly pleasure, because I
Yeah.
enjoy that kind of stuff so much. And then of course the deep work of and that's what I'm enjoying about our work together is it you think you got it all when you get to my age and you realize, oops, oopsie, it's not quite it, is it? No, it's not. And there are more iterations of self-awareness, more iterations that need to be let go of and dropped completely. And so I'm enjoying that process and really I can't thank you enough for the way you have weaved your direct experiences into these beautiful interests and these, oh, you're just like, this stuff. You just know it. You just know it. It is part of, dare I say, it's part of your DNA. It's part of your makeup. The totality of your experience as spirit in a body in this realm. So,
Um,
I feel very blessed to have found you.
thank you. I feel this is some work that fascinates me. I've got a lot of placements in my sixth house in astrology, and it's all about giving back to others, but working within a way that helps them. There's healers out there that will promise you the world. They will bring you moon dust from the stars and all the rest of it. I don't work that way. For me,
Mhm.
I would prescribe, and what you get from that for yourself, I'm happy with that. Because if it means that it opens more doors for you to be able to have an awareness to go left or right or to see things that you weren't able to see, that for me is a lovely way of working, is when the light, number one, comes back in somebody's eyes, and number two, they're inspired to be an even greater of the version of themselves
Mm.
within.
Yes. Yes. That's
No,
that is fantastic. That's fantastic.
bit that you said there that really inspires me is the spiral learning. We never learn it all. We don't know it all,
Mhm. Yeah.
and we always come back to revisit things that we thought that we knew to really grow into another version of maybe a level of awareness. And
Mhm.
I really appreciate that because I feel like I'm learning every single day and it's fun.
Yeah.
Like I don't even have time for TV. Like I've got so many books. I lost my call pepper one day. I was so upset, but I can see it in my mind. It's just not in my house in where it is in my mind.
Yes. That is a good point. That's a good point. I'm looking at the time and we're getting close. I do have one more thing that I before we part ways. I want to talk about your book. I want to talk about your book because, and I have the updated version from Lulu, and we talked about this because it's something that I'm coming clean on about. You talk about our iterations and our upleving, our evolution. That for myself, 20 years ago, when I started writing the first edition, I was at a point in my life. And then 10 years later, another point. And then when the second edition came out in 2018, another point. And here I am, what, 6 years later, and it's like, fuck,
Mm,
now this shit is working. And
yeah.
so the humility and the vulnerability to revise and to own that it's not that I blew it, it's that that is not who I am anymore. And the willingness to be open and expand and evolve. And with every expansion is an equal and opposite contraction. And that it's not a one-off. And that, my darlings, this book, I can't recommend it enough. And it really has everything in here. This is like it's like a holy grail Bible, if I might be so bold, as to pay attention not just to your experiences, but to the perhaps experiences that you're just like that kind of thing that you are absolutely repelled by, and to pay attention to what's around you. Um,
On all levels.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also as well, like I always say this and I'll say it again, we live forwards and learn in reverse. With occult wisdom, it's hidden, so we're always finding out new things. And I'm sure that when you started your book as with mine, there was things that I thought I knew at that point that actually
Mhm.
with more vision and wisdom, I went back and thought, I need to kind of shift that a bit. And I always try to bring things back into balance because we're living in a binary system, so that sits there with that. And with regards to what it is that you're doing, I'm just about to get your book and I'm really excited about reading that with it, because you've done so much work. I wish I'd got the chance to see your older podcasts as well when they were there. And that again is a sign of resilience
I
of
can
not
send it to you.
yourself.
I will send it to you, my love.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. So, what are you working on? What are you working on before we close? And anything else you want to share?
What am I working on at the moment? I'm working on homeopathic medical astrology at the moment. I know. And I don't know why I'm being called to this. Something within me, I can feel it. There's something stirring within me. And I'm working with the whole herbal system that sits with that. Because I don't think that that's really been visited in the way that maybe I would like to do it. And I'd also like
Mm,
to look at more African ancestry. I've been learning a lot about my ancestors of that part of the world. The strange thing about it is that I've got ancestors in this part of the world, and their ways were not that dissimilar. They were very, very similar in different things that they were doing. So it's about finding the middle thread.
mhm.
And then I've been asked to speak at conferences next year, so I'm working on those and just setting up some courses and stuff for people to do. So I've got my fingers dipped in a few pies.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to partake in these events. And I just appreciate you so much. And I know this is at the close of your day. So thank you for your time, for your energy, for your wisdom, for just all of it. And I'm sure the viewers are just very, very delighted and very inspired by what you have offered here today. So thank you so much. We will have all of Elona's information in the show notes below. Any parting words, my love, before we close?
So this is it. Happy New Year to you all. Use this winter period to let things go. Look at what reflections that you can look at now that can maybe help you to feel more centered and balanced moving into the new year. Plant your seeds in the spring, enjoy your summer, reap the harvest in the autumn. Never give up on being the most favorite version of yourself, even if it means you have slight dips in energy. We're always going up and down with things, and trust yourself, trust who you are, trust your spirit, and trust the beautiful journey of your life. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, my loves, that is it for this episode. So until next time, here's to love, truth, and beauty. Mwah! Bye bye for now, sweethearts.